Hello.
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 Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Local Leadership Council meeting. The live stream has started and our meeting will begin momentarily. Thank you.
What's me name? Let me.
Commissioner Hicks, I believe we are good to start whenever you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Welcome, everyone, and Happy New Year. I am Thomas Hicks, Vice Chair of the EAC and Designated Federal Officer of the Local Leadership Council. I'd like to call to order the 2022 annual meeting of the EAC's Local Leadership Council. Time has flown since the inaugural meeting of the LOC on December 10th. So I'm glad to see so many members again today for our first annual meeting of this advisory board. We are excited to see so many members from across the country. We will be asking for your input and feedback throughout today's meeting, but we ask that you mute your device when you're not speaking. For those of you not aware and viewing this live stream or on recording, the LOC consists of 2 election officials from each state's professional association. We currently have 88 members and are working to fill the remaining positions. This board supplements the work of the EAC Standards Board, Board of Advisors, and Technical Guidelines Development Committee. The inaugural meeting in December was an introduction to the agency and the EAC's initiatives, in addition to information on roles and responsibilities of the LOC's members. Today's meeting will focus more on tapping into the expertise of this board to help us prioritize resources to best serve election officials as we head into the 2022 midterms. I know that this is not an ideal for us to meet virtually, but we hope that even in this format, you will share ideas and facilitate communications with other local election officials. The work to carry out elections year-round, and I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the midterm elections that are on the horizon for all of you. As my fellow commissioners and I said in a joint statement after the November 21 elections, we are looking forward to supporting our nation's hardworking election officials and all those involved in helping Americans vote leading up to another important national election. The EAC will continue to provide assistance and resources to you as you prepare to conduct elections throughout 2022 and beyond. It is our hope that throughout today's feedback from election officials like you, the EAC support will be timely, useful, and support the work you are doing at a local level. Finally, please know that your tireless work conducting elections is matched by EAC's commitment to serving you, and that we are always open to your input. And I look forward to hearing from each of you today. And with that, I'll turn this over to Cami Foote to conduct the roll call. Cami?
Thank you, Vice Chair Hicks. Good afternoon, LLC membership, or morning, depending on where you are located. Due to the size of the board and for the sake of efficiency, we would like to ask that all members in attendance to please put your name and jurisdiction in the chat for the official record of attendance. In addition, for the purposes of the public roll call, I will be calling the list of states in alphabetical order. If you represent a jurisdiction in that state, please unmute yourself and indicate your attendance with a simple present or here. And I will begin the roll call with the state of Alabama.
Present.
Judge Tatum, State of Alabama, present.
State of Alabama, all right. Alaska,
Here.
Present.
Arizona, Arkansas,
Here.
California,
Here.
Colorado,
Here.
Connecticut,
Present.
Delaware.
Here.
Here.
Here. Doris.
Thank you. Florida,
Here. Here.
Georgia,
Present. Present.
Hawaii,
Present.
Idaho,
Here.
Illinois,
Present.
Indiana, Iowa,
Iowa present.
Iowa present.
Kansas,
Present.
Kentucky, Louisiana,
Here.
Present.
Maine,
Present.
Maryland,
Present. Present.
Massachusetts.
Present.
Present.
Again. Soda,
Present.
Present.
Missouri's here.
Missouri, thank you.
Michigan is present. I'm sorry, I blanked out.
Thank you very much. We've got Michigan now. Montana,
Present.
Present.
Nebraska. I've got two for Montana. Nebraska, Nevada,
Present.
Jersey,
Present.
Mexico,
New Mexico is present.
York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio,
Present.
Present.
Oklahoma,
Oklahoma is present.
Oregon,
Present.
Pennsylvania,
Present. Present.
Ireland,
Present.
South Carolina,
Present.
South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas,
Present.
Utah,
Present.
Vermont, Virginia,
Present.
Present.
Washington,
Present.
Present.
West Virginia, Wisconsin,
Here.
Wyoming. Right, we have 37 states and 58 attend.
Present.
I'm sorry, which state?
South Dakota.
South Dakota. We have 38 states in attendance. Vice Chair
Arizona
Hicks.
is present.
Which state is that?
Arizona.
Arizona. Okay. We have 39 states present, and with that, I'll turn it back to Commissioner Vice Chair Hicks. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that gives us a quorum, Mr. General Counsel, so we can proceed with the meeting today. And I would like to turn it over to our General Counsel, Kevin Rayburn, to talk to us about the structure of the LLC. Mr. Rayburn.
Thank you very much. As introduced, my name is Kevin Rayburn, General Counsel here at the EAC, and I'm going to give a presentation about the organizational structure of this body, and in particular, the process of drafting bylaws. So Section 8 of the Federal Advisory Committee Act, which is the main statute governing an advisory committee such as this, requires that the agency have uniform guidelines and management controls for each advisory committee. We accomplish that at the EAC through bylaws. And how we work is we closely work with our advisory committees to develop and adopt those bylaws so that the advisory board members play a role in the drafting and are bought into the process, because ultimately these govern both the members, how the meetings are run, and any committees, subcommittees that are created. So to accomplish this process of drafting the initial bylaws for the local leadership council, we will be creating a bylaws committee. And this committee will be made up of members, volunteers that choose to participate with us. And we will meet several times this year to create this document. At the end of this presentation, I'll ask you to volunteer by contacting Cami Foote. And once we get those volunteers in, we'll review how many we get and then try to make selections that are fairly representing the 5 geographic areas that we've developed for this advisory board. We're very excited about this process we're doing with this board of having these regions. As you can see on the screen, this is our proposed division for those regions. And these regions are going to be very important going forward, because based on how we draft the bylaws and work with you on that, there will likely be subcommittees, one for each region, and that those will play a role in the leadership structure of this board and how we plan for future meetings. So here are a number of topics that are usually included in bylaws. I'm going to go through them one by one. First is the objectives of this advisory board. It's a high-level overview of what are the key goals to best serve the EAC and then US stakeholders through this advisory board. The bylaws would also go through the actual process of calling and conducting meetings. How are the agenda for the meetings created? Is there a process for members to suggest and to recommend to the DFO, the designated federal officer, to include on the agenda? And when should those be submitted prior to a meeting? And how are the agenda approved? And then a big part of it is the establishment of subcommittees. As you can see with the board this size, 100 members, a lot of the work needs to happen before this meeting. We need to have a subcommittee structure that those volunteers and people who join those subcommittees can get into more thorough discussions in smaller group settings to create ideas and resolutions and then bring that to this large body at the next meeting. So we need to draft a document that goes through what subcommittees should exist. And there's a concept called a standing subcommittee, which is essentially a permanent subcommittee. And then there's special subcommittees that might be temporary. They might be for an election cycle or for a couple of years based on a topic of interest that comes up. The Standards Board, another advisory committee of the EAC, has an executive committee, which is made up of several members. And we think that's appropriate for this body as well. And so that would be a way for representatives of you all, of the greater body, to communicate with us throughout the year and to plan for the meetings. And so that way we have that back and forth feedback of what topics should be discussed and what issues are coming up and how are the subcommittees going and what will they be presenting and what resolutions potentially could we see at a future meeting. And as I discussed, the concept of regional committees, we need to describe how those will be created, what will their responsibilities be, how often should they meet, and how would those members be selected. And then going back to the executive committee, how do you get on the executive committee? Is there a process of holding elections to either get on the executive committee, or perhaps for each regional committee, there's an election to choose a chair of that regional committee. And then that chair would be represented or have a slot on the executive committee. So we will go through that process of these key committees that we envision for this advisory board. And then this is often boilerplate stuff that goes in all bylaws is, how do you approve and amend the bylaws from time to time? As we've seen with the COVID pandemic, there's been new issues pop up with our boards that we never envisioned. And how do we hold elections during hold meetings and elect officers during a pandemic? So all those things from time to time will come up, and we need to be flexible and be able to adopt changes to the bylaws. The quorum requirement, how many people are needed to be able to approve resolutions and to take actions of this board? Certainly, this is going to be a busy year, and there will be times where you all can't attend. Is there a way to create a proxy voting or an absentee voting process so that your views could still be represented if you're not able to attend one of these meetings? So we need to lay out the details for that process. And then finally, the ultimate kind of action of this board is to adopt resolutions recommending things to the EAC. So we need to go through that process. What requirement of votes, whether it's majority or supermajority, is needed to adopt those resolutions. So this is a good overview of the topics we will discuss on the Bylaws Committee, the Drafting Committee. And hopefully there's some interest in helping us create these bylaws. It's incredibly important work, and this is an amazing opportunity at the beginning of this advisory board to get in at the ground, and we have a blank slate when we create these bylaws. So I hope there will be interest. If you are interested in working with me and the EAC team this year on drafting these bylaws, please email Cami Foote, the alternate designated federal officer. You all have her emails because she sends you materials ahead of these meetings. I hope you will agree to participate, and I look forward to working with you. And thank you so much. I'm turning it back over to Vice Chairman Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Rayburn. Like the General Counsel said, this is an excellent opportunity for you to guide how the board is going to be set up. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, I wish I could have come in on the ground floor to basically correct the errors that were made in the drafting of X, Y, or Z. So this is an opportunity to make sure that those errors are not made. So with that, I will talk about the next subject that we're going to be reviewing, and that's National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. As we start the year, one of the major focuses of the EAC is National Poll Worker Recruitment Day, which will be held on January 25th as a designated day of action. That doesn't mean that you stop promoting after that day. That said, we would like to make an effort to promote heavily between now and the 25th of January to raise awareness of this effort. What made the last Poll Worker Recruitment Day such a success was the participation from state and local election officials, and we hope to see that participation again across the country. We received a lot of positive feedback and would like to continue to leverage our resources to help recruit poll workers on a national level. You should have received a toolkit with graphics, messaging, sample social media, and other materials to help you and your colleagues participate. Feel free to use that messaging and graphics that works for you, customize and direct people to your specific links and information for how they can sign up. The toolkit is also available at helpamericavote.gov. The EAC will be directing visitors to helpamericavote.gov, which includes links and information for state and local election information on signing up as a poll worker. As a board member and election official, you can participate in National Poll Worker Recruitment Day by sharing the toolkit and information with your colleagues in your states, sharing information on social media about how to sign up as a poll worker, and use the hashtags #AmericaVote, #HelpAmericaVote 2022. Use National Poll Worker Recruitment Day logos and graphics on your websites and social media. Send a press release to local media sharing and recruitment efforts and how you can participate in National Poll Worker Recruitment Day 2022. You can reach out to organizations and businesses in your community and ask them to share information with their networks on January 25th about the importance of signing up as a poll worker and how they can sign up. Any combination of these ideas and other ideas you help are also welcome. I don't see the slides up, so I will continue on. So within 2 weeks, with 2 weeks to go, we can still use your feedback on a few key areas. We mentioned a few of these during the last meeting, but I hope to hear more from you today. We would like to understand what materials or guidance would be helpful to help election officers participate outside of what we just mentioned. And we can discuss this now, or if we feel more comfortable, please share your ideas on a toolkit, as well as how else we can help recruit efforts as a federal partner by emailing helpamericavote@eac.gov. In preparing for this event, we would love to collect stories and information on poll workers in your communities who go above and beyond, who have unique stories, and who are good examples to highlight to other election officials. Thank you for those who've submitted poll worker stories already. And thanks to everyone who has asked their colleagues in their states to update the information on helpamericavote.gov. And for those who are submitting stories, the EAC has continually making these changes as needed. And please continue to send us that information so we can make sure the toolkit is updated. And again, just in case you missed it, it should be put in the chat box of helpamericavote@eac.gov. And with that, I will turn this over to our Executive Director, Mona Harrington, to discuss a few discussion items. Ms. Harrington?
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Mona Harrington, Executive Director. I've got a slide up that shows points where we would like your feedback, and I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. So at this time, I'd like to share the updates for some of the resources since our last meeting. The EAC's published the election official security webpage on eac.gov with information for election officials. This includes information from the FBI on how to report a threat with the different challenges facing election officials, defining common threats and harassment, what to document, cybersecurity best practices, and mental health resources. This webpage will be updated as needed. In addition to that resource page, the commissioners are recording videos with election officials, experts, and other partners on the topic of election official security. If you're interested in participating or have suggestions on good contacts to interview, please don't hesitate to email ADFO Cami Foote. This will be an ongoing effort, and the videos are available on the EAC's YouTube channel if you haven't already seen them. Also available are a variety of EVES resources, including the 2020 EVES Data Interactive, which allows users to examine and compare data at both the state and local levels, as well as look at any combination of jurisdictions side by side. Also available on the EVES report page are the state-by-state data highlights with summaries of EVES data for each state and territory. Finally, to expand the usability of the EVES report, the EAC's translated the executive summary into 20 languages. These translations are available on the EVES report page. What we'd love to hear from you today is feedback regarding the following areas. To help with that, you'll see a poll on your screen shortly. Hopefully the technology works for you with the following questions. What topics would be most helpful? What are the most useful formats to receive information? These are areas the EAC is focused on. And we want additional input from the board on focus areas and where we could do more or make adjustments. I'll go ahead and pause for a few minutes so that you could answer your poll. And after the poll's closed, we'll pop up the results on the screen and certainly open up the floor for more discussion and feedback.
And Mona, the poll has ended and the results should be showing on everyone's screen if you want to walk through that.
All right, thank you. So for accessibility, we have 15%. For auditing and recounts, we have 52%. For communication and PR, we have a whopping 66%. Language access programs, 11%. Security preparedness, 63%. And voting systems technology, 42%. So those are the results of the poll. Looks like we got 85% participation. So thank you all for that. Very useful.
Mona, there's also a second question if you want to walk through those results for the format.
Sure, one moment. Let me just go down. One moment here. So for voting system technology, we've got 42%, voting by mail, 43%, other 3%. For future EAC products and the most useful formats, as Kristen was indicating on infographics, we're at 40%. For live events and webinars, we're at 49%, reports, 20%, toolkits, 68%, training, 57%, videos, 48%, website content, 35%, and other 2%. So communication, PR, security preparedness, training, videos, and website content seem to be the ones that got the most. All right, thank you. A little bit on EAVES. We know that completing EAVES is a very time-consuming process for most jurisdictions, and we're committed to trying to make it easier for you to report the data while also looking for ways to improve the quality of the data. Some of the feedback that would be useful to us includes items like, are there ways we can make gathering and reporting the data easier for you? Are there items missing that would be helpful to add? Are there items that are no longer necessary to collect data on? And how would adjusting the timeline affect your ability to complete the survey? We also wanted to share a new and exciting resource that we plan to have available later this year, the Election Management Portal. The portal will be an online tool, and election officials will be able to log into a personalized account to access detailed information and policies about your jurisdictions and other jurisdictions across the nation. We also hope to be able to share helpful information such as when new resources are published and other networking opportunities would be available through that. Membership would be free. Login would be easy. It's also secure. Areas where we'd like your feedback on is what data you or your colleagues would find helpful. What resources do you wish you had easier access to? Are there any resources, trainings, or services that the EAC could provide through this online portal? And last but certainly not least, how we can encourage those local jurisdictions to sign up, get the word out, and make it more useful on an ongoing basis. Also wanted to talk a little bit about the cleries. I think you are all familiar with that. We're excited about the upcoming submission period for the 2021 cleries that begins next week. The EAC understands that many election offices have limited budgets and officials, and they may be juggling other roles and responsibilities outside of elections. The cleries is really an opportunity to highlight small as well as large jurisdictions in addition to state election offices. So these best practices can be even more helpful. We hope as election leaders in your state, you can help us share information about the cleries and encourage even more participation. 2 new categories will also be announced for the clery competition: outstanding use of HAVA grants in elections modernization, outstanding election official association program. So those are 2 new ones for this year. We'll We'll share the link for how you and your colleagues can submit entries for Clery Awards, and it'll be available at eac.gov. The winners will be announced in spring of 2022. If you do not intend on submitting in a specific category, we would encourage you to consider signing up to be a judge. As a board member, you should have received that interest form from us. Please be sure to fill that out by January 18th if you're interested in being considered for a judge role. And this slide is just a final reminder on our various social media accounts and resources that we offer. We encourage you and your colleagues to follow us on social media to keep up with the latest EAC resources and events. Before I turn this back over to Vice Chair Hicks, is there anything that I didn't cover that any of you would like to discuss? And Vice Chair Hicks, I defer to you if there's anything else that we'd like to hear from anyone on, or if we just want to have time at the end to hear from our members.
Thank you, Executive Director Harrington. I would like to give an opportunity to those who put other in the voting columns to talk about what their other thoughts are, if they feel comfortable doing that. Anyone who voted other?
Good morning. This is Jeremy Johnson with the state of Alaska. And one of the reasons I marked an other is that the state is implementing ranked choice voting for all state and federal races. So trying to find some resources and information to be able to support us would be great, whether that's education, information, and also the ability to potentially do independent open source result auditing afterwards. I know that for folks in Alaska, this is a brand new voting tabulation method, and we certainly don't want to have to do a hand count to prove to folks that the results are accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that Ricky Hatch from Weber County, Utah has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And I put this in the chat as well. I like the concept of kind of like a mini clearinghouse, and I hate to duplicate clearinghouse, so there may be a way to link that in, but I view clearinghouse entries as kind of bigger, more substantial type entries, and I'd love to see some kind of resource where locals can share specifically local administration best practices, and they could be something as small as, use an envelope slicer instead of doing it by hand. It could be just one or two line entries that might be helpful. And if it's grouped by process or something like that, that might be helpful for other locals.
Thank you. I see Michael Stahlberger.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mike Stahlberger, Blue Earth County, Minnesota. Kind of following up behind Ricky there, similar ideas there of bringing forward some best practices ideas, whether or not that's through a listserv or discussion thread, maybe that could live under that new portal that you're creating. But then also I had suggested another training opportunity of doing some sort of scheduled roundtables that are maybe tied to themes. So we can actually bring folks together to discuss in a virtual platform various election issues that we might be facing. We've done that in Minnesota in some of our association meetings, and it just is a good opportunity to bounce ideas back and forth and then actually build on them. So that was the other I had suggested. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Before we move back to Ms. Harrington, I wanted to see if there were any other folks who might have put other in their vote, or if anyone had any questions about the bylaw presentation that was put forth by our general counsel as well. I think I skipped over that too. So if folks have questions about that or comments, feel free to raise those as well right now. Not seeing any. Wanted to go to general comments for the LLC. If folks had comments that they wanted to raise about the LLC and the process and other basically open discussion, as we have it, we're a little ahead of time right now. Ricky Hatch from Utah.
Sorry to keep talking. And thank you for putting this together. I think this can become a great resource for the EAC as well as for locals. One thing I'd like to propose or consider and actually get feedback from other local officials is the concept of a current national email distribution list for election officials. I know the Associated Press elections polling service has a list that has 4,000, but there is no currently existing national list where information could be disseminated very quickly to a large chunk or most local election officials. And the challenge is, with about 9,000 of us, and how frequently those names can change. The real challenge is keeping that list current. However, I think with this LLC and with possible partnerships through National Association of Counties that covers 80% of counties throughout the country, we might be able to make this list pretty current and keep it current with a mix of the two organizations' infrastructure and communications channels. This list wouldn't be like your traditional listserv where any election official could post a question directly and it goes to everybody, because that can fill up inboxes pretty quickly. My thought is in instances where this would be helpful is if there is a national type incident or a key piece of national information that makes sense to get it out to all local jurisdictions. For example, maybe back in 2020, the Proud Boys email that went out to several states, and within 24 hours, it was determined that that was a hack from Iran. Locals get a lot of questions about stuff like that, and this might be a really helpful tool to provide that kind of dissemination. The other thing that I'll say is we might say, well, that's what we've got our secretaries of state and state elections directors for, because it goes to them and then they can disseminate. And I think that is a good model, but I don't think it's complete. I think in some states, the state elections director or at the state level, things get stuck and they don't come down to the local level. So this would be a way for locals to receive information directly and quickly, rather than always having to rely on the states for the dissemination of that. Anyway, kind of a long explanation, but that's kind of my thought. If a local had a persistent or an important question that they would want to send out to all locals, they could do that through some kind of central process that would get vetted to make sure that everybody's inboxes aren't overloaded. I'd sure love to hear feedback from other locals if you think something like this would be helpful or maybe not.
Vice
Thank you, Ricky.
If you're okay, just wanted to say a couple things on that. So Ricky, thank you. That's so important. And we recognize that. And we actually send out a newsletter and have been trying to create this list for some time. And there are certainly challenges with email addresses staying updated. We have a good number right now, but I feel like it is missing several thousands. And we use that list regularly, but as you mentioned, it's been really challenging to keep it up to date. But we definitely, for the first time, started distributing really important EAC matters to election officials that are signed up to that newsletter. And so also promoting that and keeping that list. There are definitely gaps. And so I think it would be useful to try and get more email addresses. We are making progress slowly, but the list is certainly missing a lot of election officials off it. And there's also turnover. And so maintenance is very real, what methodology you put in place to keep it updated.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion on the email list?
Chairman Higgs. This is Wesley Wilcox from Marion County, Florida. I would like to remind us that the EISAC has a number of members, especially local jurisdictions, and because it is a technology side, possibly partnering with CISA and the EISAC to help maintain that list may be a good avenue to where we can, because they are doing a lot of stuff through the cybersecurity and do need active contacts and relevant contacts. So we may be able to partner with them as well and kind of fill out that list. I think they have over 3,000 members currently, so that may be an avenue as well for a partnership.
So I think the keys to to this list is this body right here. This group can really help us. I think you guys probably have a lot of state lists or other lists that you can assist us with. That election portal that I was talking about, the EAC standing up, is also a really useful centralized area to potentially gather this kind of information. Again, just throwing out thoughts on some of the work we're doing in line with what Ricky mentioned. So we do have a few thousand members on our list, but as Ricky mentioned, it's probably closer to 8 or 9. So there's still some gaps, but I think this body right here can really be helpful in that effort of compiling an accurate list. And then internally at the EAC, we can certainly figure out how to best maintain it moving forward.
This is Donna Johnson in Sutter County, California. As the webmaster for our California Association, we do maintain those lists, and I think that would be fairly easy for us to periodically just pull an extract from our database and then send it over your direction. And I don't know if other states have those same setups with a listserv internally for their state that can be just periodically fed to that database and updated periodically.
Thank you. I think that would be really helpful if other states do have some sort of mechanism to periodically update that as well. Is there any more discussion on this topic?
Vice Chair Hicks.
Go ahead, Chairman Palmer.
Sure. The only point I would just add is I hate to keep potentially tasking folks, but regarding the portal, we're going to roll that out a couple of weeks before our actual rollout date, and love to get the feedback. I guess we're going to look for local election officials that will take a look at the portal and see where we can tweak it to improve it or have some future enhancements after the initial launch date. So I'll let Executive Director Harrington handle that issue, but I just wanted to make you all aware that we're going to give you an opportunity to take a look at it before we go prime time with it.
Thank you. Looking to see if there's any other hands raised. Donna, did you have another comment, or is your hand just still up? So, nope. Okay.
Vice Chair Hicks, this is Rui. I have a question.
Go right ahead.
I apologize. I don't see where to raise the hand, so I apologize. I'm wondering if you were talking about email addresses in the newsletter. If I change my email and contact with Cami, is that sufficient for the newsletter and everything else, or do I need to go to other areas and make those updates to my contact information?
For that, if you update it with me, I'll make sure that the newsletter also updates your information, and I will follow up within the EAC as an agency to get all of that updated. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
And congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hicks.
Not seeing any other hands, I would move on to if there's any other topics that folks would like to discuss before moving towards the closing.
Commissioner, Vice Chairman Hicks,
right
there
ahead.
is one question in the chat. If you'd like me to read that out.
Okay, and I do see Brenda from City of Fairfax also has her hand up.
Okay, so just let me know when you're ready for me to read the question, and then I'll turn it over to you for now.
Okay, Brenda?
It may be my question. I did put it in the chat. I was wondering how we provide updates for the helpamericavote.gov page. I'm the City of Fairfax, and mine is a couple of broken links. So I'm assuming if I push this out to my state colleagues to update it, I need to let them know how they update it. And someone has told me actually that they need to email the helpamericavote.gov, Help America Vote EAC at EAC.gov, and then they'll confirm the changes. Seems like a lot of work for an email, but.
Brenda, if you have changes for us, whatever is most convenient to you, you can provide those to us and we'll make the changes immediately.
Okay, I didn't mean it was more work for me. I meant it was more work for a single email to get, because in this state, I have 133 people I'm going to send an email to and say, hey, make sure your information is correct. So I'm more concerned about overwhelming an email address, more concerned about you than me. I can certainly do that.
No, I appreciate it. That's the mechanism we have set up right now is the Help America Vote at EAC.gov email address, and we have our developer paying close attention to that, changes as needed. But thank you.
Cami, if you want to read the question.
Yes, so this is from Kathy in Maine. She says, does the EAC track if any looking to increase the crime classification for threats against election officials? There's a bill going on before the committee of the Maine State Legislature tomorrow to increase the crime classification, and it is getting pushback from several groups, associations of criminal defense.
So Vice Chair Hicks, do you want me to answer that question?
Sure, go right ahead.
So I actually don't know if we're tracking that. I don't want to spill the beans that we may have a partner that we're going to be tracking certain statutory laws on a variety of subjects, and one of them may include election, threats against election officials. I'm reading this question, and then there's another follow-up, I believe, from Kathy as well. Oh no, there is a response to it. I would say the big issue with regards to threats against election officials from a legal perspective is it does come under the First Amendment, and they're trying. I'm sorry, and there's some vagueness in what is the requisite intent to harm an individual. And so there's some legal uncertainty with that. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you're running into some resistance. I think that there are some states that have their election officials are provided the same protections as an elected official or some other legislator. And those states have the most success, I believe, in responding to election administrator threats, because they have the same protections, which are usually heightened for a legislator or that sort of elected official. So that's just some advice if you're dealing with your legislator. You're going to get some resistance because it goes into the area of First Amendment, and that's a little muddied right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Kevin, did you have any other follow-up to that as well? In terms of tracking of,
I think Chairman Palmer was very accurate with the First Amendment kind of issue that runs against, and I don't think we have a public tracker, certainly. So we won't have a database at this point in time to share.
Vice Chair Hicks, I was just going to say, I think everybody on here is aware, but there's the Election Crime Task Force with the Department of Justice. That would be, a really appropriate group to bring these kinds of concerns their way. And I think just generally speaking, with the EAC, we don't really get involved or comment on state or local legislation. It's not entirely appropriate with our mission. But the DOJ does have that Election Crime Task Force, and I think that's a very applicable newly stood up task force that addresses or looks at these kinds of challenges in the space.
thank you. Any other comments or any other subjects, or Kimmy, if there's any other questions that that I missed in the chat?
I don't see any other questions. I apologize if I missed any. So I would encourage anyone who has left a message in the chat, if I did miss it, to please verbalize it.
Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for your feedback today. And as the officials on the ground who administer elections, your input is critical to the EAC. We hope you share the information you learned during your work as local leadership council members with the members of your state and associations. I want to give a final reminder for some important upcoming dates for the EAC. The Clery submission period opens on January 18th, so please share this opportunity with your state colleagues. We hope to recognize and share the best practices election officials have developed through this awards program. And like I said earlier, January 25th is National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. We hope this day of action will be an opportunity to focus efforts on recruiting poll workers in your community. Finally, on February 17th, the EAC will host a language access event. We hope the panels for this event will provide some practical information on how to serve language minority voters in your jurisdictions. Information on these important upcoming events, new resources, and other information are all available on eac.gov. Today's meeting is my last as the designated federal officer of this board, but I look forward to continuing to work with you all in 2022 and beyond. So thank you for your participation and your contributions to the EAC. And with that, I will say that this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all. Bye now.